Thank you. So, now the brief is to be a cross between a TED talk and an after-dinner speech. So, I'm going to be both, that means I'm meant to be both inspiring and funny. So I'm going to fail twice. Maybe. But if there is a little bit of inspiration, that would be good. When looking at what a volunteer is, I turned to the trusty Cambridge English Dictionary. And it was really, really unhelpful. Volunteering, it says, simply, is an act of doing something that's unpaid and not forced. That's a bit rubbish, I think, as a definition. Put your hand up if you're unpaid in this room. Keep it up if you're not forced to do what you do. One of our Bold Hotel colleagues has kept his hand up, which is perhaps a bit troubling. So that sort of feels a bit dissatisfactory as a definition. Because if you come in and say, "Good morning everyone, I'm here because I'm unpaid, and I'm here because I'm not forced to be here," and that's your definition, then I think we can do better than that. The other linked definition in the dictionary is amateur. Now I have a little bit more time for amateur, and let me explain why. I think because from its roots of love, and to do something you love, and with concentration, possibly a little bit of obsession, but concentration of something you love, there's some positives in that. I think in our society, though, we don't value things that are amateur. So if we're worried about the value we place on volunteering, I'm not sure amateur quite works. And amateur-ish is an insult. So if I say thank you for all the work you do, it's been wonderfully amateurish this year, you're probably going to punch me on the face. So amateur, it's got some good qualities as a word. Amateurish, less so. So if volunteering is a bit of a dodgy one, and amateur and amateurish have some problems with them, what is it that you do when you come and volunteer for us? What is it that you do? And we've deliberately, as Jess said at the beginning, sat you with people you would not normally meet. So the first thing we notice about this volunteering experience is the diversity. That you're coming from different backgrounds, with different reasons, working in different projects. So for a few seconds, I'm going to ask you to put your hand up from when I shout out some projects, and then the staff will remind me if I've forgotten any projects. If you work in a food bank distribution centre, so in other words where you meet the clients, put your hand up. And then you can look around the room and see these people. If you work in the warehouse at the Victoria Centre, put your hand up. Or drive. If you work in the office at the Victoria Centre and the reception and admin and things like that, put your hand up. If you are part of the advice team where you help people with welfare benefits and debt advice, put your hand up. If you have supported people who've come from Ukraine through our Ukraine Welcome Centre on a Thursday afternoon or a Friday morning with the English lessons, put your hand up. If you work in one of our food pantries, put your hand up. A big contingent from our food pantries. That is a growing area of our work. And we shouldn't assume that you know what a food pantry is. It's not a food bank. It's where people can choose their food, and there's a context in which there's a social context, tea, coffee, chatting, support, and people can go into a shopping room and come out with things that they actually want and need, and they pay something towards it. If you work in our Next Steps project and the community market that is a key part of that, put your hand up. If you work in one of our warm spaces, put your hand up. And if you work in our uniform hub or our community hub at Cambridge Walks, please put your hand up. That is amazing. If you are a staff member and a volunteer here this evening, not being paid to be here, please put your hand up. So we've discovered the diversity. I don't think any of you are amateurish, and I don't think any of you are just here because you're simply unpaid or simply not forced. So we need to find a better way of discussing this, don't we? And I think for us within Compassion Acts, as we've grown, it was fairly simple when we were one project, perhaps a second project that grew out of it, and in a few locations. It was, most people knew each other, and most people knew what they were doing. We now have volunteers across all of those fields. And it's such a shame that it's taken this long to get some of you together. We've only got some of you here. 211 people volunteered last year, so we've only got 90 or so in this room. It's great to get some of you together, but COVID and other things have got in the way of getting you all together. But we want to do more of this, and we will do more of this. But one of the things that I think that sets you apart and sets us apart, hopefully, from the amateurish volunteer or the volunteer who's just here because I'm unpaid and I'm not forced, is that you can be a connected volunteer. And what I mean by that is that you need the professional staff and the professional staff need you. In order to do your volunteering, you need a professional context. You've not just decided that you're going to turn up at a food bank one day and do your bit of good. You need to know that that bit of good connects in with the big plan. And why would you know too much about the bigger plan? And similarly for the staff, for the so-called professionals, for the people who work, there's not so much difference really. They need to know that they're doing the right thing, that they're connecting with what you do. You need to know that what you're doing fits in with what they do, and they need to know what they're doing fits in with what you do. So a model of volunteering that is connected volunteering, rather than simply turning up, is what I think we have, or we want to have. And that it's a cliche, but that we need each other is a definite reality for what we need here. So it would go something like, the paid staff would have no understanding of what you might be leaving at home and what you might be coming out to do on your volunteering day or what you're facing with the clients. Of course, there wouldn't be that understanding because they're not in your head. Similarly, you as volunteers would have no understanding of some of the context of what's going on with the paid staff. And why do I make this point, and almost it might seem to labour this point? I think it's because if we can't start to pull apart empathy here within Compassion Acts, between the teams, between volunteers, between staff, between trustees, and start to really empathise, understand where each other's coming from, a little bit. And we're not going to be able to do it for our service users. And the people who use our services need to hear from us a sort of united and empathetic workforce. And that's what I believe we have, and I believe in the coming years we're going to really, really focus on being empathetic, good carriers of compassion and action to others. Because your volunteering isn't your little bit of volunteering, you're part of a big picture. And your bit of staff work is not part of just you, it's part of a big picture. Look at all that variety in the room of the projects when you put your hands up. It's something that our trustees, I know, are really concerned with, and it's great we've got the Chair of Trustees here tonight and one or two other trustees. And in the coming months and years, we want to develop a model where we can listen to volunteers and have a volunteer forum and a volunteer sounding board for some of the key decisions that are coming up so that you feel involved. Perhaps sometimes you've wondered where decisions come from. Because do you remember I said before that you're working in your own little bit, so why would you necessarily see the bigger picture? And sometimes in the past we've not been very good at that. We've perhaps not included you very much. So we want to do better at that. So if you're interested in maybe joining a volunteer panel, that we can run ideas past you, then that's something to speak to me or one of the staff before you leave tonight, or send an email afterwards. That would be a panel that would sit under the board level, but would influence what the board decides for the future of this charity. No one wants this charity to grow and grow and grow and grow, because we don't want there to be any more people who are struggling. The story of this charity over the last few years has been growth, but that's not what I want. That's not what you want. Yes, it's given you an opportunity to bring your little bit of volunteering and connect it with another. So I hope you've enjoyed that. I hope you've got something out of that. But that's not the ideal. We want a society in Southbourne Formby and the surrounding villages where people have enough to eat, where they're not as lonely as they seem to be now, where they're not as fearful, where the money that they earn from their job or from their benefits covers their basic necessities. We're some way off that, unfortunately. But you are doing a great job at moving us towards our aim to reduce poverty and increase social well-being in our area. So, a new vision of volunteering. Forget what the dictionary says. Definitely not amateurish, and not simply professional, but the professionals and the volunteers need to come together to create a framework so that you can thrive as volunteers. Thank you for all you do. Look at that figure. £250,000 worth of social value in the community last year. That's if you were paid at a sort of a median level. That's what you would have been paid. So you are valued and valuable. But your type of volunteering is not just you've woken up one morning and decided to do it. You have a structure around you, a professional team to support you, and they need you to anchor them, and you need them in order to understand your place within the bigger picture. Thank you very much, and I hope you enjoy the rest of this evening. We've got some wonderful awards coming up. So fill your glasses and what have you, and we will move on to the awards section. Thank you for all you do.
Stop it and start it then.
Yes, that's how we're setting your
I'll just stop it. You just press that again.